it is a matter of when. That from Toronto's Chief Medical Officer of Health when it comes to a second wave of COVID-19. But where do we stand now? And what's being done to prepare for what's next, especially with back to school around the corner? Joining me now with the latest developments is Mayor John Tory, and I'm looking at my monitor, Mayor, and you are wearing a snazzy jacket. I don't think I can't see that. You've brought out the jacket for the Raptors. Yes, because Game 3
just today.
Tonight.
Just today, because we're in a tiny bit of a I don't want to call it a hole. We're just behind, but we were behind last year at this time with the Milwaukee Bucks, so we're behind now. We need to get out all of our good luck charms and cheer them on this evening. So that's what I'm doing, and so we'll do that while we attend to the city's business.
Okay, Jacket's making a comeback. I do want to get your predictions at the end of this interview, though. First off, I want to begin with this second wave. We've heard from yourself and Dr. Davila about the preps that are underway. In our You Sound Off chat, we were talking to people about that bubble, and Dr. Davila was stressing the importance of that bubble, especially as we head back to school. Where's the city standing when it comes to preparations for this second wave?
Well, we've been really spending our time, in addition to fighting the first wave, as it were, preparing for a resurgence. So it means we have an even better plan than we've ever had with respect to personal protective equipment, masks, gowns, and so on for our first responders. It means we have re-examined everything that happened in long-term care, child care. We've made preparations to have, if we need to have it again, emergency child care for frontline workers. So we've really gone through everything that we've done from top to bottom and made sure that there is a plan in place. In terms of contact management done by our public health people. But, I mean, the key to it really is going to be to try and make sure that when there's a resurgence, because the experts all say there will be one, that we have stayed the course in terms of the basics, because we can do all those things, but those are things that are in some respects dealing with the virus after it's been contracted by somebody, as opposed to the things we can do ourselves: washing hands, keeping distance, wearing face coverings, re-examining our social circles all the time, because with kids going back to school and so on, and maybe if grandma's living at home, there's a need to take a look at what kind of contact happens inside that circle. So everybody should be doing that. So there's a lot of work for us all to do, but the main thing is to stay the course. Don't assume we've got this thing wrestled to the ground. Avoid crowd scenes, avoid, close contact, avoid places where they're not following the rules. In fact, if you feel it's really serious, then call 311. But we're just trying to say, use common sense.
When you mentioned back to school there, a couple of weeks ago when we talked, there were plans, or at least the city had offered up additional spaces that school boards could look at to expand their spaces to create, a bit more room for students to spread out, and educators as well. With school coming up now in about a week for Toronto students, have there been more discussions on possibly using some of these spaces?
Well, we gave them a list of dozens of spaces we could make available without any interruption to our own programs, and we said we'd be willing to look at places where we might have to interrupt our own programs. And of course, we're focused in particular on the areas where there's the greatest acute need in terms of lack of space for spacing kids out and or higher rate of contraction of the virus. As yet, we haven't received a definitive answer saying we want the following spaces, but we're expecting that answer quite literally today, because of the imminence of school reopening. And we're just willing to work with the school boards and anybody else we have to make sure the return to school for parents and kids, most importantly, is as seamless as it can be. And I would just say I hope that everybody adopts that attitude in the next week. We've seen a bit of sniping back and forth between some of the stakeholders, and I hope they can just decide for the next 7 days we're going to really bear down and get this to be as safe as we can for our kids, knowing there's going to be some risk no matter what we do.
Indeed. Mayor Tory, talking a little bit about enforcement, public health announcing that some of their staff will be attending places like malls and retail spaces, ensuring that people are adhering to these guidelines. We had an email coming to us saying, people riding the TTC, and not everyone still is not wearing a mask. So are we at a point where we do need to enforce a little bit more with tickets? I know you don't want to do that, but is that maybe the only way to make this happen?
Well, I mean, enforcement is a huge challenge in a great big city like this. If you're looking at all the apartments and condos where we say you have to wear a mask. On the transit system, there's all kinds of buses and subway cars and streetcars all over the city all the time. And so we really are relying more, to be honest, on people to just do the right thing. And I rode the subway to work on Monday, for example, and I would have said, in fact, I can only say I spotted 2 people out of all the people I saw who were not wearing masks. Everybody else was. So I think that while there are always going to be some who don't, and some of those people may have a medical exemption, you don't know that. But I think there's a lot of people even wearing masks in places where they don't have to on the street. So we're just going to keep up the campaign that sort of says to people, this is what you have to do to protect your friends and neighbors and loved ones, and hope that people do it. We will have enforcement people out there. What we're looking for in places like malls and bars is people in too close contact with one another, because every one of the cases is not because they're in a mall or a bar, it's because they're too close to other people. And that is a reflection of the fact that those bars and malls are not necessarily doing everything they can, but it's mostly about human personal behavior, that people have chosen to let themselves get too close to other people, and they're not wearing a mask. And if they just did those two things, kept their distance and wore a mask, then we're going to see this spread reduced to very, very tiny numbers.
Mayor Tory, I want to switch gears here. We've seen an uptick in gun violence in the last week. A significant shooting that happened yesterday with 6 people injured, very brazen here. I know you're appealing to the federal government to again bring back those anti-gun investments. Where do things stand right now? Where will that push be?
Well, there was a commitment made during the election, and I saw the Prime Minister reiterate it yesterday, but as yet the money hasn't been kind of confirmed. I mean, he confirmed it yesterday, but, there's nothing like actually flowing the money to the cities and towns across the country so that we can invest in kids and families. We've invested millions more of the Torontonians' tax dollars this year in new programs to help keep kids away from gang violence. But it isn't as simple as just doing that. We have to do more of that, and we will. But it is also toughening up some of these laws that have bail. People out on bail previously on firearms charges get charged again, and then they're out on bail again. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and everybody's at fault in this, including, I should say respectfully, the judges. We have a need to support the police. I mean, the police have their job to do, and our new police chief, acting chief Jim Raymer, has a plan where he has reallocated resources to attack what is a very gang-related spate of gun violence that's going on in parts of the city. And so I think that I haven't heard anybody yet that has a magic answer to this. Even all the critics, there's pages of newspaper filled this morning by people saying it's a problem. I acknowledge it's a serious problem, but I haven't heard any of those same people say they have the answer, because there isn't a magic answer. We just have to keep at this. We have to have the support of all governments to invest, to support the police, and to change some of the laws. And the part that we need to speed up, well, all three of those we need to speed up, but changing some of the laws is very important as well.
Absolutely. There's a report out right now talking about the CNE. So again, changing topic here for a second, reporting a loss of about $6 million this year because they couldn't open up. A lot of people flock to the CNE. We see it as kind of the unofficial end of summer. Everyone goes there and then they start school. Very different this year, and a possibility that the fair might not be able to operate past 2021. I want to get your take on that.
Well, we're going to sit down and sort all of this out. There's a lot of things that are in some jeopardy because of the pandemic and what's happened, and the CNE is no different. We couldn't operate it this year for the obvious reasons. Normally, we'd be preparing for the air show this weekend and for that kind of unofficial close of summer, but it's not happening. The loss, they say, is $6 million, and that's a lot of money, but at the same time, there are ways in which we can work with them. I think what we have to do is work with them and with the city stakeholders and kind of reimagine the CNE a little bit, just to see what we can do, because it is 2020 and soon to be 2021. And at the same time, we can take a look at the finances. We've been sitting down with all of the festivals that have been so adversely affected, not just the CNE, and dealing with them in terms of how to put on some virtual festivals, how to address some of the health aspects of what they do and so on. We've been focused on the pandemic, but we will get to focus on this, and we'll sit with them and make sure that a treasured tradition in the city is, possibly with some modifications, obviously going to be there in 2021. It's not, I don't think anybody should be pushing any panic buttons at this point in time.
It would be really sad. I need those little donuts, Mayor Tory. Need those little donuts. Yeah. Finally, I want to just revisit the Raptors before we go. Again, you are wearing your blazer back on. We know this is good luck, Mayor Tory. We're going to Game 3 tonight. Raptors, your message for our team and some predictions, if you've got any.
Well, the jacket proved to be quite lucky. It had a good record last year, but let's put the jacket aside and just look at our team. We've got a very talented team. They're very passionate. They're very committed. I think they might want to do one both for the Coach of the Year, Nick Nurse, and for their president, Masai Ujiri, who's got his own issues unfairly that he's been confronted with. But they've got a lot of grit, and we saw that last year. We've seen it this year. So today will be the day to get back in the series, because once it's back to 2-1, then it's a whole new ball game, and we saw that happen last year. So let's just make sure we all cheer them on, and if we all have our good luck charms to get out and put into action, then let's do it.
You got it. Go Raptors. Mayor Tory, as always, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mel. All the best.
Thank you. All right, Dina, there you have it. Mayor Tory's got his jacket on. There's Dina. Good morning.
Mayor Tory, I have the same jacket. I'm going to go put mine on, too. Let's hope it works, because we need some help here. You know what I'm saying?
We do, yeah. Don't panic, but yes, we need to sort of all hands on deck for this afternoon. So let's do it. Everybody get their jackets and their rabbit's feet and their coins and their this and their that, the shamrocks. Get it all out. 4-leaf clover. Let's do it.
All the